Joe, the reason you're on with us today is to talk about 65 Roses in aid of cystic fibrosis. It's something you're passionate about. Like, how did it come about that we know that you're a very charitable man, and how did this link with cystic fibrosis come about?
Selflessness is the most selfish path that you can take because you get such personal rewards from it. You know, I cannot tell you, when I had this wacky notion, I'm going to give a kidney to somebody, right? It just came into my head. And as soon as that came into my head, I was euphoric. You couldn't have tied me to stop me doing it. You know, I remember telling my parents, I told them about a week before I was doing it. My mother nearly had a heart attack.
Why?
I was getting waves of euphoria. I couldn't wait to do it. I said, like, I am going to save somebody's life. I will be responsible for their life being beautiful after this, you know. And I'll always have.
Was it just a notion, Joe?
Well, I think, I was an abused child, and I think that one of the things that comes with that is a feeling that you're not as good as anybody else, that you're lesser somehow. And for me, once I'd done that, you say, well, look, this is what I can do. I didn't say that, but that's what you felt. Look what I can do.
Yeah.
Hey, come on. And it opened the door into a world that I hadn't known anything about, the world of our neighbours suffering and transplant, and then particularly cystic fibrosis. I'll tell you a story about that. So I very quickly got immersed in that. A number of things struck me. First was the sacred bond between the mother and the cystic fibrosis child. Because a mother has to abandon her life. There is no life for the mother, because this child can't breathe. This child requires oxygen. This child has to take special feeding pills before they eat, protein pills, so that they don't vomit. They may have to have a peg in their stomach. They have to have constant physiotherapy, constant work. And as the child becomes an adult and gets sicker and sicker and sicker, as was the way then, the mother becomes the child's life, and they become intertwined. And for me, that was an amazing thing to see. How easily these mothers gave up their lives for this,
That's tough.
Precious child. And sorry.
No, it's fine, Joe. Take your time.
And I'll tell you a story about it that illustrates the importance of transplant and people, signing up and telling their loved ones, look, if that's what you wanted to do, God forbid, we want you all to have happy lives, even you that died here. Long and happy lives, but God forbid anything happens. If you have that conversation, It's amazing. You can save 5 or 6 lives. So you're in a life support, your life is gone. But what a consolation for your family that your altruism has saved 4 or 5 other lives. Maybe a child's life, an infant's life. I've seen it. I've seen them. I've seen many, many children who are alive now because of that simple decision to say, look, if anything ever happens to me, don't worry about it. This is what I want. Boom. So anyway, Gary Dempsey and Gary Dillon, I became so close to them because I was, visiting in, for instance, the cystic fibrosis patients and all that. You have to be so careful. They're kept in, once they become very ill, like the 2 boys were. So Gary Dempsey from Donegal, Gary Dillon from Sligo. And they were in adjoining rooms in St. Vincent's. And they were the best of pals. And during all the time that I was visiting them and then in contact with them, and in the short periods when they were home, and maybe sometimes longer periods if they were feeling well and not getting infections, they'd be talking about each other and all, and tablets and all this here. They were always on FaceTime. And then one day, it was like being hit over the head. Gary Dillon just casually said to me, I was saying, must be, lovely when you're able to spend time with Gary. And he said, we've never actually met because of the risk of cross-infection. Never met.
Oh, yeah.
And then shortly after that, Gary Dillon, for want of a set of lungs, 31 years of age, beautiful man, died. And Gary Dempsey, a few months after that, got a set of lungs. And he's alive and well and ripping it up in Donegal as we speak, working, doing all the normal things. So it shows you that path, the different path, to death or to a new life.
So we're asking everybody to register as an organ donor.
Absolutely. And then on 6th cystic fibrosis, there have been marvellous advances over the last 5 years in medication. Trikafta, Orkambi, Kalydeco. Because what happens with cystic fibrosis is that you have a mutant gene, and the gene produces mucus. So if you think of your genetic material around your lungs, it starts to produce mucus. The mucus starts to fill into your lungs. Then it becomes an infection gallery because your lungs have a massive surface area. You get sicker and sicker. Your lungs start to fill up. You can't breathe properly. And then you get infection after infection, infection after infection, and then you just get sicker and sicker. You can't eat properly. Your other organs start to close down, and there's been huge work done by the Cystic Fibrosis Society, trampolines, dislodging mucus, keeping you healthy. There's a huge amount of voluntary work's gone into that. But these 3 drugs, for the first time, are tackling the root cause. So kids now who are born with cystic fibrosis have a marvellous chance of a long life. And the Cystic Fibrosis Week is so important because it's a very small charity. Ireland's the capital of the world for cystic fibrosis. It's a mutant Celtic gene. We would have over 1,000 patients. And this week is so important because the 65 Roses campaign, it brings in usually about €1 million. And if we can bring in €1 million, then the foundation, which is small and terrific volunteers, and one of the great I've been the ambassador for 7 years now, which is a great privilege and honour for me. And, if people can support 65 Roses, and you'll get it if you go on 65roses.ie. The reason it's called 65 Roses is because that's how they teach children with cystic fibrosis how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
It's not just the money, it's the fact that they realise then we are not alone because they're so isolated. They're in the house, they're avoiding infection, they're avoiding other human contact. Very many of them are like that. And so to see a public display of support for them is terrific for morale.